There are moments in life when the pain cuts deep, when words wound, when betrayal shakes your foundation, and when injustice feels unbearable. You may wonder, where is God in all of this? But here is a truth that will anchor your soul. God has not overlooked your pain. He has not ignored what was done to you. He is a just God, a faithful Father, and He knows how to deal with every situation far better than we ever could. Today you're about to discover not only how God handles those who hurt you, but also how you can walk in freedom, peace, and victory. No matter what anyone has done, God is your defender. He sees every injustice, every hidden motive, every careless word, and every intentional wound that others may think went unnoticed. Nothing escapes His sight. People may misunderstand you, misrepresent you, or even try to tear you down, but there is a God in heaven who watches over your life with perfect awareness. He is not distant, and He is not indifferent. He is deeply concerned about what concerns you. When you are wronged, it can feel as though you are standing alone, as if no one truly understands the depth of what happened. But God not only sees the action, He sees the intention behind it. He knows the truth when others distort it. He understands your heart when others misjudge it. And He keeps a perfect record, not for the purpose of condemnation, but for the fulfillment of justice in His perfect way. You must come to a place where you trust Him as your defender rather than trying to defend yourself in your own strength. The moment you step in to justify, argue, and prove yourself, you take on a burden that was never meant for you to carry. But when you step back in faith and say, God, you see this, and I trust you with it, you activate a higher system of justice, one that cannot fail. God's defense is not limited by human ability. He doesn't need evidence, witnesses, or approval from others. He can turn situations around in ways you could never orchestrate. He can expose truth without you speaking a word. He can shift hearts without confrontation. He can restore what was damaged and elevate you in the very area where you were attacked. There are times when it seems like the ones who hurt you are getting away with it. They appear to move forward without consequence while you are left carrying the pain. But what you see is only temporary. God's justice operates beyond what is visible. He works in ways that are often quiet, but always precise. Nothing is ignored, and nothing is forgotten. As your defender, God also protects your future. Even when someone tries to harm your reputation or block your progress, God has the power to preserve your destiny. What others meant for harm cannot override what God has planned for your life. He is able to take every negative action and ensure it does not have the final say. This requires faith on your part, a decision to believe that God is more capable of handling the situation than you are. It means resisting the urge to retaliate, to speak out of anger, or to carry bitterness in your heart. Instead, you stand firm, knowing that the one who sees all is actively working on your behalf, ensuring that truth, justice, and restoration will come in His perfect way. And timing vengeance belongs to God, not to you, and that truth challenges the natural instincts of the human heart. When you've been hurt, something inside you rises up demanding justice, demanding repayment, demanding that the person who caused the pain should feel the same weight you carried. That desire can feel justified, even necessary, but it places you in a position you were never designed to occupy. Taking vengeance into your own hands pulls you out of faith and into a cycle of emotional and spiritual exhaustion. The more you replay what happened, the more you rehearse the offense, the deeper the wound becomes. It begins to shape your thoughts, influence your words, and control your actions. What started as something someone did to you slowly becomes something that lives inside you. God never intended for you to live under that kind of burden. When God says that vengeance belongs to Him, it is not a denial of justice. It is a declaration of perfect justice. Human revenge is often fueled by emotion, limited understanding, and a desire to hurt back. But God operates from complete knowledge. He knows every detail, every motive, every hidden factor that you may never see. His response is never excessive, never lacking, and never driven by impulse. Releasing vengeance to God requires a deliberate act of trust. It means choosing to let go even when your feelings are still intense. It means refusing to act on anger even when you feel justified in doing so. It is not about pretending the hurt didn't happen. It is about deciding that you will not be the one to settle the score. You hand that responsibility over to the one who judges righteously. There is also a spiritual protection in stepping back from vengeance. The moment you decide to retaliate, you open the door to more conflict, more misunderstanding, and more damage. But when you refuse to engage in that cycle, you step into a place of peace that cannot be shaken by what others do. You remove yourself from the battlefield and place the situation into God's hands, where it can be handled without causing further harm to your heart. Sometimes people think that if they don't take action, nothing will happen. They believe that letting go means allowing injustice to win, but in God's system, letting go is not weakness. It is alignment. It is positioning yourself under His authority, where He can move freely on your behalf. While you are at rest, He is at work, addressing things in ways that go beyond what you could accomplish through your own efforts. Vengeance also has a way of binding you to the very person who hurt you. As long as you are focused on getting even, your attention, your energy, and your emotions remain tied to that situation. But when you release it to God, you break that connection. You step out of that loop and begin to move forward, no longer defined by what happened or controlled by the desire to make it right on your own terms. God's way may not always be immediate, and it may not always look like what you expected, but it is always just. He knows how to deal with people in ways that bring truth, correction, and accountability without compromising His righteousness. Your role is not to enforce justice, but to trust that justice is already in the hands of the one who cannot fail. Forgiveness releases you from spiritual bondage, even though at first it may feel like you are letting someone else off the hook. The truth is, unforgiveness does far more damage to the one who carries it than to the one who caused the offense. When you hold on to bitterness, it settles deep within your heart and begins to influence how you think, how you speak, and how you respond to life. It becomes a quiet weight that drains your peace and clouds your ability to move forward freely. Every time you replay the hurt, every time you revisit the moment, you reinforce the grip that offense has on you. It's like reliving the same wound again and again, allowing it to stay fresh instead of allowing it to heal. This is how spiritual bondage operates. It keeps you tied to a past event, unable to fully step into the present or embrace what lies ahead. You may be physically free, but internally something keeps pulling you back. Forgiveness is not about denying that the pain was real. It is not about pretending that what happened didn't matter. It is a conscious decision to release the right to hold that offense against the person any longer. It is saying, I will not allow this to control me anymore. That decision may need to be made more than once, especially when emotions rise again, but each time you choose forgiveness, you weaken the hold that bitterness has on your life. There is also a deep connection between forgiveness and your own spiritual condition. When you refuse to forgive, your heart becomes hardened. It becomes more difficult to experience peace, more difficult to hear clearly, and more difficult to walk in the fullness of faith. Unforgiveness creates a barrier, not because God withdraws from you, but because your heart is no longer open in the same way. It becomes guarded, resistant, and weighed down. Forgiveness, on the other hand, restores that openness. It softens your heart and allows peace to flow back in. It creates space for healing to take place, not just emotionally but spiritually. When you let go of the offense, you are no longer carrying something that was never meant to be yours. You are stepping out of a prison that had no visible walls but very real effects. It is important to understand that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation or trust being immediately restored. It does not mean placing yourself back into harmful situations or ignoring wisdom. Forgiveness is about your internal condition. It is about what you release within yourself. You can forgive and still set boundaries. You can forgive and still move forward without allowing the same harm to repeat. As long as unforgiveness remains, it continues to shape your perspective. It can affect how you view others, how you interpret actions, and even how you see yourself. It creates a filter through which everything passes, often leading to suspicion, fear, or guardedness. But when you forgive, that filter begins to break. You start to see more clearly, respond more calmly, and live more freely. Forgiveness is not always easy, especially when the hurt runs deep or when there has been no acknowledgement or apology. It requires strength, humility, and a willingness to rise above the natural response of holding on. It is an act of faith, trusting that releasing the offense will not leave you empty, but will instead bring restoration to your inner life. It is choosing freedom over captivity, peace over turmoil, and forward movement over being stuck in what has already happened. Hurt can become a doorway to spiritual growth, even though in the moment it feels like something that only brings pain, confusion, and loss. No one seeks to be hurt, and no one enjoys the experience of being misunderstood, rejected, or betrayed. Yet within those difficult moments lies an opportunity to grow in ways that comfort and ease could never produce. What feels like a setback on the surface can become a turning point deep within your spirit. When everything is going well, it is easy to remain at a certain level of faith, patience, and understanding. But when hurt enters your life, it begins to reveal what is truly inside you. It exposes areas that need strengthening, attitudes that need adjustment, and beliefs that need to be rooted more deeply. It challenges you to respond not based on emotion, but based on what you choose to believe and stand on. In moments of pain, you are faced with a decision. You can allow the hurt to harden you, making you more guarded, more defensive, and less trusting. Or you can allow it to refine you, making you stronger, wiser, and more anchored than before. Growth does not come automatically from pain. It comes from how you respond to that pain. The same situation that breaks one person can build another, depending on the direction they choose to take internally. Hurt also pushes you into a deeper dependence on God. When human understanding fails, and when answers are not easily found, you begin to seek something greater than your own reasoning. You begin to lean not on what you see, but on what you believe. In that process, your relationship with God deepens. It becomes less about surface-level faith and more about a steady, unwavering trust that remains even when circumstances are unclear. There is also a transformation that takes place in your character. Through hurt, you develop patience, because healing does not always happen instantly. You develop compassion because you begin to understand what others may be going through. You develop strength because you learn how to stand even when everything around you feels unstable. These qualities are not formed in comfort. They are forged in the moments when you have every reason to give up, but choose to keep going. Hurt can also sharpen your discernment. You begin to recognize patterns, understand boundaries, and make wiser decisions moving forward. You learn that not every situation deserves your full access, and not every voice deserves your full attention. This is not about becoming closed off, but about becoming more aware and intentional in how you live and who you allow into your inner world. At the same time, growth through hurt requires that you do not become defined by what happened to you. The pain may have been real, and the experience may have left a mark, but it does not have the authority to shape your identity. You are not what someone did to you. You are not the sum of your worst experiences. Growth happens when you take what was meant to diminish you and allow it to strengthen you instead. As you move through the process, you begin to realize that what once felt like a breaking point has become a building point. The very thing that seemed like it would weaken you has contributed to making you more stable. Your faith becomes more genuine, your perspective becomes broader, and your ability to handle life's challenges becomes greater. Instead of remaining stuck in the hurt, you begin to rise above it, carrying with you a deeper sense of purpose and a stronger foundation within your spirit. God deals with people according to His justice and mercy, and that balance is something the human mind often struggles to fully grasp. When you've been hurt, your natural desire is to see immediate justice, clear, visible consequences that match the pain you experienced. But God's way is far deeper than simple reaction. He sees the full picture, not just the action, but the intention, the history, the condition of the heart, and even what led a person to act the way they did. His justice is perfect, meaning nothing is overlooked and nothing is mishandled. Every wrong is accounted for, every action weighed with absolute accuracy. There is no bias, no favoritism, and no error in his judgment. What may seem hidden to others is completely exposed before him. He does not rely on appearances or partial understanding. He knows the truth in its entirety. This means that when God deals with someone, it is done with a level of precision that human judgment could never achieve. At the same time, His mercy is just as powerful as His justice. Mercy does not mean that wrong is ignored, but that God allows room for change, repentance, and transformation. He does not rush to punish when there is an opportunity for a person to turn, to recognize their actions, and to grow beyond them. Where humans may react quickly and harshly, God often moves with patience, giving space for hearts to shift and attitudes to be corrected. This combination of justice and mercy means that God's response may not always look the way you expect. There may be times when you feel that nothing is happening, when it seems like the person who hurt you continues forward without consequence. In those moments, it is easy to question whether justice is being served. But what you cannot see is the internal work that may be taking place, the conviction, the correction, or the opportunities being given for change. God's dealings are also not limited to external outcomes. He can work within a person's conscience, bringing awareness to what they have done. He can allow circumstances that lead them to confront their own actions. He can create situations where truth becomes undeniable. These are not always loud or immediate responses, but they are effective in ways that go beyond surface-level correction. There is also an important understanding that God's goal is not simply to punish, but to bring things into alignment with what is right. His justice restores order, and His mercy opens the door for transformation. Even when consequences come, they are not random or excessive. They are measured and purposeful. Nothing He does is out of impulse. Everything is rooted in His nature, which is both righteous and compassionate. Trusting in this balance requires you to release your own expectations of how things should be handled. It requires you to let go of the need to see immediate results or to define what justice should look like. Instead, you place your confidence in the fact that God's way is higher, more complete, and ultimately more effective than anything you could orchestrate. When you understand that God operates from both justice and mercy, it changes how you respond internally. You are no longer consumed with the need to monitor what happens to the person who hurt you. You are no longer driven by the desire to see a specific outcome. Instead, you rest in the assurance that nothing is out of God's control, and that every situation is being handled in a way that is perfectly aligned with truth, righteousness, and the opportunity for change. Faith and trust in God bring peace instead of revenge, even when everything within you feels pulled in the opposite direction. When you've been hurt, your thoughts can become restless, constantly replaying what happened, imagining what you could have said or what you should have done differently. That inner unrest fuels a desire to respond, to correct, to make things right by your own effort. But faith calls you to a different posture, one that is not driven by reaction, but by quiet confidence. Trusting God in these moments means you are choosing to believe that He is fully aware of your situation and fully capable of handling it, even when you cannot see immediate evidence of change. It is a decision to rely on something deeper than your emotions. Feelings may tell you to hold on to the hurt, to stay alert, to guard yourself in a way that keeps the offense alive. But faith redirects your focus, shifting your attention from what was done to you to what God is able to do on your behalf. Peace does not come from the situation changing instantly. It comes from your inner position changing. When you place your trust in God, you stop striving to control the outcome. You stop feeling the need to fix everything or to ensure that justice is carried out according to your expectations. Instead, you allow yourself to rest, knowing that the responsibility no longer belongs to you. That release creates space for peace to settle in, not as a temporary feeling, but as a steady condition within your heart. Revenge, on the other hand, keeps your mind active in a destructive way. It keeps you engaged with the offense, constantly feeding thoughts that stir anger and frustration. The more you entertain those thoughts, the more they grow, and the more they influence your actions. Faith interrupts that cycle. It challenges those thoughts and replaces them with a different perspective, one that acknowledges God's presence and His involvement in your life. There is strength in choosing peace over retaliation. It may not appear strong from an outward perspective, especially in a world that often values immediate response and visible assertion. But internally, it requires discipline, self-control, and a deep level of trust. You are choosing not to act on impulse. You are choosing not to allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. That kind of restraint is not weakness. It is maturity and spiritual stability. As you continue to trust God, you begin to notice a shift within yourself. The intensity of the hurt begins to fade. The urgency to respond begins to lose its hold. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, and what once consumed your thoughts begins to lose its prominence. This does not mean the situation was insignificant. It means your perspective has changed. You are no longer centered on the offense, but anchored in something greater. Trust also frees your energy and attention. Instead of being consumed by what someone else did, you are able to focus on your own path, your own growth, and your own purpose. You are no longer held back by the weight of what happened. Your mind becomes clearer, your decisions become more intentional, and your direction becomes more stable. Choosing faith and trust is not a one-time decision, but an ongoing process. There may be moments when old thoughts try to return, when emotions rise again, or when reminders of the situation surface. In those moments, you reaffirm your choice. You bring your focus back to God, reminding yourself that He is in control and that you have already released the need to handle it on your own. Each time you do this, you strengthen your ability to remain in peace rather than being pulled back into the cycle of revenge. Blessing those who hurt you activates divine favor in your life, even though it goes against every natural instinct. When someone has caused you pain, the last thing you feel inclined to do is speak well of them, pray for them, or desire anything good for their life. Everything within you may resist that idea because it feels undeserved and unfair. But operating at this level is not about what they deserve. It is about the position you choose to take and the spiritual principles you choose to align with. When you bless instead of curse, you break the normal cycle of reaction. Hurt typically produces more hurt. Negativity produces more negativity, and offense multiplies when it is returned in the same measure. But when you respond with blessing, you interrupt that pattern. You refuse to allow someone else's actions to dictate your character or your response. Instead of becoming a reflection of what was done to you, you rise above it and choose a higher way of operating. Blessing someone does not mean you agree with what they did or that you minimize the impact of their actions. It does not mean you ignore wisdom or place yourself back into a situation where the same harm can occur again. It is an internal decision to speak life instead of death, to release goodwill instead of holding on to resentment. It is choosing to align your words and your attitude with something greater than your immediate emotions. There is a spiritual shift that takes place when you do this. Your heart begins to change. The grip of anger loosens. The intensity of the offense begins to fade, and the heaviness you once carried starts to lift. You are no longer feeding the hurt with negative thoughts and words. You are replacing them with something that brings freedom. This is not always instant, but it is a process that gradually transforms your inner condition. Blessing also positions you to receive. When you hold on to bitterness, it closes you off in ways you may not even realize. It affects how you think, how you speak, and how you relate to others. But when you choose to bless, you open yourself up. You create space for peace, for clarity, and for favor to flow into your life. It is as if you are aligning yourself with a current that moves in a positive direction rather than resisting it with negativity. This kind of response requires intentionality. It is not something that happens automatically, especially when the pain is still fresh. You may have to choose your words carefully, even when your feelings do not fully match. You may have to remind yourself repeatedly of the position you have taken. But each time you choose to bless, you reinforce that direction within yourself. You are training your mind and your heart to respond differently. Over time, you begin to see the impact of this choice. Situations that once triggered strong emotional reactions begin to lose their power. Your responses become more measured, more peaceful, and more grounded. You are no longer controlled by what others do or say. Instead, you operate from a place of stability that is not easily shaken. Blessing those who hurt you also reflects a deeper level of trust. It shows that you are confident enough in God's ability to handle the situation that you do not need to hold on to negativity. You are releasing control and allowing a higher system to work on your behalf while you remain free from the burden of carrying offense and resentment. Before we go further, there isn't actually an eighth keynote in the list you started with. Define 7. I can still expand an additional idea that fits naturally with the theme so your flow stays strong. Trusting God's timing requires patience when justice seems delayed, and this is often one of the most challenging aspects of dealing with hurt. When something wrong has been done, there is an immediate desire for resolution. You want clarity, acknowledgement, and visible correction as soon as possible. Waiting can feel uncomfortable, even frustrating, because it seems like nothing is happening while the memory of the situation is still fresh in your mind. God's timing does not operate on human urgency. What feels delayed to you is not delayed from His perspective. He works with a complete understanding of all factors involved, including things you cannot see and details you may never fully know. Timing, in His way of working, is not just about when something happens, but about how it happens and what it produces in everyone involved. A response given too early may not accomplish what needs to be accomplished, while a response given at the right moment carries a deeper and more lasting impact. During the waiting period, your focus is often tested. It is easy to drift back into questioning, wondering whether anything will change or whether the situation has simply been overlooked. This is where patience becomes more than just waiting. It becomes a steady trust that remains even when there is no visible movement. It is choosing to stay grounded rather than becoming restless or reactive. Waiting also reveals where your confidence truly lies. If your sense of peace depends entirely on immediate outcomes, then any delay will disturb you. But when your trust is placed in God's ability rather than in quick results, you begin to experience a different kind of stability. You are no longer dependent on external changes to feel settled internally. Instead, you carry a quiet assurance that things are being handled, even if you cannot yet see how. There is also a refining process that takes place within you during this time. Patience develops strength in your character. It teaches you how to remain steady without needing constant reassurance. It helps you resist the urge to interfere, to force outcomes, or to revisit the situation in ways that only stir up more tension. You begin to understand that not every process needs your involvement, and not every outcome needs your control. At times it may appear as though those who caused the hurt are moving forward without any consequence, and that perception can intensify the challenge of waiting. But appearances do not reflect the full reality. What is visible on the surface rarely shows what is happening beneath it. There may be processes unfolding that are not immediately evident, situations developing that will bring clarity later, or internal changes taking place that cannot yet be seen. Trusting God's timing also means releasing the need to measure progress based on what you observe. It is letting go of the habit of checking, evaluating, and comparing what should or should not be happening by now. That constant monitoring keeps you mentally tied to the situation, while trust allows you to move forward without being anchored to it. As you remain patient, something shifts within you. The urgency begins to fade, the pressure to see immediate results lessens, and a deeper sense of calm begins to take its place. You are no longer rushing the process or trying to predict the outcome. Instead, you are allowing things to unfold in a way that is not forced, not rushed, and not incomplete, while maintaining a steady confidence that everything is being handled with precision and purpose. As you bring all of this together, a deeper understanding begins to settle within you. The pain you experienced was real, the hurt was not imagined, and the impact may have been significant, but it does not have the final authority over your life. There is a greater reality at work, one that goes beyond human actions and reaches into the realm of divine order, justice, and restoration. You are not left to carry the weight of what was done to you. You are not responsible for balancing the scales or making everything right. That responsibility belongs to God, who sees perfectly, judges righteously, and acts with both justice and mercy. Your role is not to fight for control, but to stand in faith, to release what you cannot change, and to trust what you cannot yet see. Every choice you make in response to hurt shapes your future. When you choose forgiveness, you step out of bondage. When you release vengeance, you step into peace. When you trust instead of striving, you position yourself for stability. When you bless instead of curse, you align yourself with a higher flow that brings freedom rather than restriction. These are not small decisions. They are defining moments that determine whether you remain tied to the past or move forward into something greater. Even the hurt itself, as painful as it may have been, has not been wasted. It has the potential to strengthen you, refine you, and deepen your understanding in ways that comfort never could. What once felt like a breaking point can become a place of transformation, where your character is shaped and your foundation becomes stronger than before. There may still be moments when questions arise, when emotions surface, or when memories try to pull you back. But now you know the path. You do not have to return to old patterns of reaction. You do not have to carry what has already been released. You can stand firm, grounded in the assurance that everything is being handled in a way that is beyond your limitations and above your understanding. This is where true freedom is found, not in controlling others, not in seeing immediate outcomes, but in being anchored in trust. A trust that allows you to move forward without bitterness, to live without the constant weight of offense, and to walk with a sense of peace that is not dependent on circumstances. A trust that keeps you steady, knowing that nothing has been overlooked, nothing has been ignored, and nothing is beyond the reach of God's ability to bring it into alignment with His perfect will